Hey folks, my name is Jürgen, aka Not I'm Proud of It, and Destiny has brought you to my channel today to talk about the new reserved list. Yes, I call it the new reserved list because I think it kind of is like the reserved list. Wizards of the Coast actually, despite not wanting the reserved list, wanting to get rid of the reserved list, trying to go around the reserved list and sell dual lands to you Commander players by introducing the 30th anniversary edition, but still they have introduced a kind of new reserved list. It is a couple of, or it is filled with a couple of cards that are deemed cultural inappropriate. I think that's what it's called. Cultural offensive, it is called. It is called. Quality video, folks. But stick with me. The topic is very interesting, despite me mixing up words sometimes. Initially, cards like Crusade here. Oh, don't look at it. Don't look at it. Cards like Crusade, which still was available until, like, I think even 4th edition. So there are quite some copies out there, and there are even more copies. There's even different artwork later on. But Crusade is not appropriate anymore, so culturally offensive. Cards that have been removed from the Wizards of the Coast library, and even like on Scryfall you can't see these cards unless you click, and even eBay for a while I think you can't see these cards unless you click on it. So Crusade, we're going to do a complete guide, so stick with me for a bit. Crusade was one of them. Then we had Cleanse, then from Legends. Then we had Invoke Prejudice from Legends. Then we had Imprison from Legends. So I'm going to put these three up on the screen. Cleanse, Invoke Prejudice, and Imprison. And then, actually, from Arabian Nights, we had Jihad, the Stone-Throwing Devils, and then again from Legends, the Pradesh Gypsies. So these 7 cards, including Crusade, of course, had been called culturally offensive, and therefore they were like removed from the game, more or less. Despite this, after a while, when Dominaria United came out, and we all knew there were lost legends in the packs in the collector's edition, they did not distribute a couple of cards. The cards that were mentioned before, like Invoke Prejudice and so on, they were removed anyways. But they also removed all cards from Harold McNeil. And those are cards like the Sylvan Library or like the Flash Counter. And they also removed Barbarian Apes, Graw Giant, Gwendolyn the Gorsey, and finally Pyrotechnics. So that was a bit weird. But in general, these cards apparently are deemed culturally offensive as well. When the 30th anniversary edition came out, and of course that was kind of based on beta, like the first collector's edition as well back in the day, they removed these 2 cards here, which is very interesting. Earthbind, I can kind of understand that, because she's bound to the ground and looks a bit like bondage. And yeah, it is, I think, great artwork from Quinton Hoover. But Wizards of the Coast deemed this card very offensive, apparently. So don't look at it. Don't look at her. I said don't look at her. This one, Weakness, I don't really get why they removed this, because Douglas Schuler is an artist that is not problematic. The artwork doesn't seem very problematic to me, and I'm not really like sure why they removed this. Furthermore, There are several artists, like I mentioned Harold McNeil, but of course we know the story about Therese Nielsen as well. Several artists that are seen as not fitting the company's narrative when it comes to their political beliefs, I guess. Harold McNeil, I think, has been called right wing, if I remember correctly. I'm not very political, so I don't know. I think Therese Nielsen was speaking out against a transgender player, or in general, something in the sense of like about sexuality. Not quite sure about that neither, so I don't speculate, but both of them are shunned by Wizards of the Coast. So this is technically not really part of these other cards here, because I don't consider this like reserved list, because Force of Will is reprinted with different artwork. But if you want to get that specific card, then it with this specific artwork, this will not be possible anymore. So these cards are kind of like the reserved list as well. And the same goes for cards they changed the name of. For example, the totems or totem armor was like a keyword ability was renamed to Umbra armor, because totems are considered sacred things. So still the card will probably exist, but in kind of a different way. This leads me to a new discussion, because cards like this are not coming back. Cards like this are not coming back. The Legends cards, Invoke Prejudice, and these kind of cards, Jihad, Stone Throwing Devils, they are not coming back. So these are technically on the reserved list, because they are not to be reprinted again, which is what the reserved list says. When we look at cards like this now, with the recent development of Kaladesh, oh, I said it, there I said it, Kaladesh being something, a word that Wizards is not using anymore, are these cards now on the reserved list as well? Because the boxes, they have the name Kaladesh and they just renamed the set. But these cards, they have Kaladesh in the name. So technically, these cards won't be reprinted again, right? If I'm not mistaken. Same goes for Chandra, Fire of Kaladesh here. I got a few different versions, and I just got these not to be on the safe side if they are like going up in price. I don't care. Probably never gonna play this card. I wanted to make this video, so I spent like 30 bucks on a couple of different Chandras and the Invasion of Kaladesh. And stupid spend, but that's what this video is worth to me, because I think it's a very interesting discussion. There are different versions of Chandra. You got like the pre-release version here, and technically pre-release cards like this, folks. Yeah, I got a playset of these. I liked it. Technically, let's put it this way, pre-release cards are kind of reserved list as well. Of course, it's a bit of the same story as with the Force of Will here. It's not that these cards won't be reprinted again, but they will never have that stamp again. And that's why I didn't quite get that these promos, or some promos in general, unless they are printed millions, but these kind of promos, that these are like not a bit more sought after. So this is like the promo version. Then you got a version of a different set. And of course, it's a double-sided card. So I guess Chandra Roaring Flame is out of the question as well, as she turns into Chandra Fire of Kaladesh. Or they reprint it as Chandra Roaring Flame and then give her a different backside. And then I had the normal foil version here of the card of the same set. Oh, one non-foil, just to get like an impression of the card in general. I'm gonna take a couple of these in my hands just to get a good thumbnail here. Yes. Let's do the Force of Will as well. like this. I mean, yeah, that probably gives a pretty good impression of what we're talking about. So this should be a good thumbnail for the new reserved list. Do you think, let me know in the comments, cards like Chandra, Fire of Kaladesh or Invasion of Kaladesh are now part of the reserved list as well? I'm very curious. To finish the discussion, and just so you know, I'm not actively going after a couple of these cards or whatever. I have an unlimited crusade for my set. The same goes for weakness and Earthbind. Got a couple of Chandras and Invasions of Kaladesh, because I think this is interesting that the name Kaladesh is, I think these are the only two cards which have Kaladesh in their name. Somebody mentioned it on the channel and I wanted to make a video about it because I thought it was very interesting. But I got these for a couple of bucks, like I said, like 30 bucks. And yeah, you are able to visualize what I mean. But do you think these cards will go up in price because of that? Because they won't be back? Do you think they're going to reprint it in a different way? Do you think, yeah, because cards like this, all white creatures, we didn't ban the Bad Moon, but all white creatures gain +1/+1, so this card won't be even reprinted with the same mechanic in a different art or with a different name. Because, yeah, I think it's about white creatures, and that, of course, can be considered racist if you have a big imagination, because Crusade, to me, is like a historical event. And the last thing I wanted to mention is cards like this. I recently got these from a valued member of the channel, good friend of the channel, Savannah Line. Holidays 2015, the Goblin Sleigh Ride. Is this reserved list? Because this won't be back like in this form ever again. Will it be reprinted in another form, like with the same card for Holidays 2025 as a 10-year anniversary? Yes. Or like a secret lair with all holiday cards? Yes, that would be possible. But this card, Happy Holidays 2015, will never be back. And the same goes for misprints. They're not gonna misprint stuff on purpose. So they are not going to reprint misprints. They could, like best misprints ever, another secret lair, because this is not reserved list. So these cards are a little more safe, in my opinion. This is kind of reserved list. We maybe have to distinguish between three kinds of reserved lists, like the normal reserved list, then the additional reserved list because of cultural offensive cards, of being a cultural offensive card. Then we got the artwork and name reserved list, because this artwork won't be back, this name won't be back. And the same goes for the stamp here, which I think falls under artwork, name, and specifically promo, stamp, or whatever reserved list. And misprints, I think, is a totally different story, because those have not been planned. But these won't be back in this form. So if you are really looking for reserve list cards or a new reserve list, Wizards of the Coast actually implemented this. And it's really weird that they did, but they did. You can go after these cards. Some of them, like the Stone Throwing Devils, have gone up to $100. Arabian Nights Jihad has gone up. Like the Invoke Prejudice, I think it's $300-400 for this Legends rare, and it's one of the few that has a very, very high price. And same goes for Crusade, for an unlimited one in good condition. You pay like $100. So yeah, folks, let me know what you think in the comments. I think it's a very interesting conversation, and I'm curious what you think. We kind of have a new reserve list, in my opinion, and take it as you want it. It is a thing that is here to stay, because these cards won't be back. Some of them not at all, some of them not in the current form, some of them need to really be like revamped, like reinvented with new names or whatever. This is what it is, folks. Interesting conversation, I think, personally. Folks, stay healthy, stay frosty. Thanks a lot for listening. I talk to you next time. Bye-bye.